Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Chair of Monmouthshire County Council.
Good afternoon, members and officers. Please be seated. If we go to the agenda, please, any apologies for absence. Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Councillor Ruth Edwards, Councillor Peter Clark, Councillor Phil Murphy, Councillor Jeff Burrows, Councillor Sarah Jones, Councillor Sue White and Councillor Anne Webb.
Councillor Petroni.
Councillor Armand Watts.
Councillor Howarth.
I've got Councillor Marshall, Councillor Down and David Jones will be making it. It's just running a bit late. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you for that. Public open forum. There are no public forum items. So we go straight on to item 3, Chairman's report and receipt of petitions. There are no petitions, but my report is there. And I just want to say this about my report, if I may. Before I want to mention a couple of things before I come to the report. Members will have noticed the rainbow flag at half-mast on their way to this building today. It was felt appropriate given the circumstances in Orlando last week, and about 50 people were shot at and killed in a nightclub. We feel this is right to recognise that atrocity upon innocent people by lowering the rainbow flag to half-mast. We fortunately live in a country where there are strict laws regarding guns and other implements likely to cause harm, and long may that be so. It leaves me to say that sincere thoughts with the relatives and friends of the people killed as they mourn by their loved ones. So could we please recognise that by standing for a minute silence at this time? Thank you. Thank you. While I'm still on my report, I think it's great. On the Queen's birthday honours list, we're proud to hear that various people across the county have been honoured by the... Sorry, Councillor Petroni.
I'm sure the whole council chamber would like to send their best wishes to the Labour MP, Joe Cox, who was shot and stabbed, I believe, today.
I was just going to mention that, but thanks for that. So that, yeah, this was in Leeds. She was stabbed first and shot afterwards. She's in a critical condition in Leeds Infirmary, I believe. If I can go back to the Queen's birthday honours list, we are proud to hear that the following people have been honoured by the Queen. Someone we know fairly well, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tuggy, Deputy Lord Lieutenant of Gwent, was awarded the CBE. Mr. J. Rowlands, for his services to the Hood Memorial Hall, he was awarded the BEM. Sarah Byford of Usk was also awarded the MBE. Mrs. Jane Hart of Caldicott was awarded the MBE. In relation to those, please, we know the addresses of some of them, but there are two people in there in particular, and I think that's Mr. J. Rowlands and Mr. Sarah Byford. We don't know their addresses off. So if someone could pass those on to me at some point in time, please, and I think it's appropriate we send a letter of congratulations to them. Thank you. In my report, which records my invitations, I'm pleased on the second of my first day's engagements to have been invited to Treorchy for conferment of the freedom of this Rhondda Cynon Taf borough upon Mr. Matthew James of that town. That was the gentleman on the beach in Tunisia who led across his fiancée to protect her from being shot. He suffered some shot wounds as a consequence of that. But you would be pleased to know he is back to full health, and it was a pleasure and a privilege to meet someone so brave. Thank you. So the rest of my report is there as is. Thank you. Yes. So, and then the declaration of interest, please, in item 4. None. Item 5, to confirm and sign the minutes of the following. So Wednesday, the 4th of May, 2016, extraordinary meeting.
Move.
And second? All in agreement? Thank you. Tuesday, the 10th of May, 2016, which was the annual meeting.
Move.
All agreed? Thank you. And then Thursday, the 12th of May, 2016, which was the deferred items business. Councillor Francis Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say once again, I couldn't find any action sheet relating to this particular agenda, and we've agreed this at probably every council meeting that we've been at for some time now. There isn't an action sheet. It doesn't help you follow up on the issues. And from my point of view in particular, Chair, one of the very important issues, which I've just got a couple of corrections on, if I may, is the item regarding the M4. Yes, just a couple of corrections, if I may. Just to clarify that on page 15 under item 19, where it refers to the trunk road, it's actually the section of the B4245 at Undy which is due to become a trunk road rather than anything else. And equally, where the request about a liaison committee or a liaison is mentioned, that's very specifically about requesting a formal liaison mechanism between Welsh Government officers and the County Council and not their contractors. And I think that needs to be specifically mentioned. But further to that, Chair, I just want to say that I'm really very disappointed that the letter that was agreed that would be subsequently written on this hasn't been circulated to all members. And I've only just received it today because I've asked for it, and I won't make any bones about the fact that I am very, very disappointed with the content of that letter. And actually, I find that the letter is, I wouldn't say it's the quality that Monmouthshire Council members would wish to be represented and sent to Welsh Government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Brian Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can just say that as regards the last item that Councillor Taylor mentioned, I spoke to Roger Hoggins. We will redraft that letter, and we may even sort of put it in front of you, Francis, to see if you approve of it. I mean, we've sent in the council's letter, which was, you recall, passed by a majority of members, but we will send in another letter to highlight the significant minority, as I think the Chief Executive put it at the last meeting. Thank you.
Chairman, on a point of
Just
order.
a second. No, let Councillor Taylor, I think.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Councillor Taylor might answer.
I was just going to say on a point of order, by way of personal explanation, I don't think it's a significant minority. I think it's fact that the vote was actually 16 to 14. So that I would say that's well, that's more than a significant minority, I would say.
Minority, nevertheless, Councillor, excuse me,
The democratic process is it was a majority. Thank you. Councillor Farley.
Thank you, Chairman. The same minutes, page 11, number 15, category C, joint committees and local authority companies. There's an ambiguity in the paragraph beginning, a member requested. I believe I was the member, but that's not the point. I think there should be an explicit reference to the EAS, the Educational Achievement Service. Otherwise, it reads as though it relates to the SRS, which is discussed above. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, it'll be amended to reflect that comment you just made. Right, thank you. Could you switch your light off, please, Councillor Jones? Item 6.1 is the minutes of the Democratic Services Committee meeting, which was held on the 21st of March 2016. Councillor Evans, please, you were chairman at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask the council to accept the minutes as read, please?
Thank you. That agreed? All agreed. Thank you very much for that. Item 6.2, the minutes of the meeting on Thursday, 26th of May 2016 of the Audit Committee. And I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Philip White to this meeting. Mr. White is the lay member of this council, appointed to this council, and he is also chairman of the Audit Committee. So, Mr. White, when you are ready, please.
Well, I'll just follow the previous protocol and ask the full council to accept the minutes of the committee. It's the first time I've had the opportunity to present them in person, so I commend them to you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any questions of Mr. White, please? No one? Thank you very much, Mr. White. Short session.
I'll be back later.
Yeah. If you wish, you can stay. It is a public meeting. Yeah. Thank you. Item 7 is notices of motion. There are none. Item 8 is a report of the head of policy and engagement. Who's presenting that, please? Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recommended that the council notes the progress made in preparing for the arrival of first arrivals from Syria in this summer, and that the Member Officer Working Group continues to oversee the arrangements for their arrival and future. The Member Officer and Multi-Agency Working Group has met 3 times so far to discuss the arrangements of the arrival of the Syrian people under the UK Government Syrian Resettlement Programme. Just like to say that Councillors Crook, Councillors Taylor and Councillor Hackett-Payne have contributed to that group. I'd like to thank them for their contributions so far. In order to effectively and efficiently plan for arrivals of Syrian families into South Wales area, the Home Office have chartered transport to arrive in Cardiff this summer, and Monmouthshire County Council has previously advised the Home Office of our intention to receive up to 20 families over the lifetime of the scheme. This summer will see the arrival of the first 3 families. I'll leave it there because I know that Councillor Hackett-Payne wishes to make a contribution, and that Will McLean, Head of Governance, will be answering questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. Councillor Hackett-Payne.
I'm very happy to speak with the rest of the members after Will has introduced it.
Any queries on what's just been presented to you, please? Councillor Prosser.
Thank you, Chair. I think it might be useful if the presiding member of a particular ward is informed of any refugees coming to their area, so they can keep a watching brief, basically. So I know it's difficult because it's as and when the houses become available, etc., as per the report, but it'd be useful if each local member is advised if they're in their ward.
I think that's noted, and it is appropriate, I believe. So could we do that, please? Thank you. Anything, Councillor Taylor?
Can I just say, Chair, that I know that members have raised a number of issues as the working group has continued to meet, and one of the things I just wanted to say that I was particularly pleased about is that we recommended that officers look to other authorities that already received Syrian refugees in the resettlement programme, and also to wider third sector organisations that were initially planned. And to be fair to officers, they have indeed done that, and I think that's been beneficial, and I'd like to thank them for taking the time to do that. I'd also just wanted to, I spoke with Will earlier and just wanted to clarify, and I think he's going to when he gets a chance to speak. Sorry, I thought Will was going to speak first. That the note about the ESOL provision in there is also for the whole family and not just referring to the children who will be starting school. So I was pleased to note that. And I'd be also interested, as things progress, to understand how that might be delivered, because obviously there will be very small numbers, so to have a viable environment for that to take place, I think it'll be an interesting exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Crook.
Sorry. Yeah, really, I just wanted to actually take the opportunity to be nice to the other side of the floor and just thank this council for taking on this programme, because it is a truly great programme and it's something that I sort of really personally believe in quite heavily. And I would just add to the fact that the group has done some really good work. I think it's had quite a broad representation from a lot of different areas, and we've tried to cover every possible sort of eventuality. And I think that we've done that quite well. The officers have done that quite well. All of the other partner agencies which we've been working with have done that, you know, as well as we can, and hopefully not just will it go to plan, but also these people will get the best out of it for themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, it is all about the people that are coming over, and hopefully we will have done it so that they can have the best possible opportunities out of, you know, what is a horrific situation. So.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you. Very much along the same lines to thank the group. But it's also been quite remarkable how much I personally have learned from being on that group, from actual refugees themselves and from the wealth of experience that other authorities have as our neighbours, and that has been used and will help us to welcome these Syrian refugees when they do come. It was quite interesting to know that some of them actually will move on, and it could be a rolling programme. And I think maybe at some time when everything is sorted a little bit more, maybe perhaps a members' seminar, so that all members perhaps could have an insight into perhaps a subject that we don't know fully about.
Thank you. No other comments? Sorry, Councillor Penny-Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to know if there are any plans for Monmouthshire to take refugee children, the orphans at any stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for members' comments on the report. I'll take them in order if I can. With regards to the making local members aware, certainly, Councillor Prosser, that's referenced in the report, and I think we see that as being a very important role for local members, and we'll continue to do that throughout the programme. It has been very beneficial to talk to outside agencies about their involvement in refugee resettlement programmes alongside our colleagues within local government. In particular, the colleagues that Councillor Taylor put us in touch with at Oxfam were a really significant help, particularly around specific support for women refugees that they might need in terms of assimilation into society and that orientation support. So that was a great help. The drafting of the report perhaps isn't quite as clear as I would have hoped it to have been, but with regards to the ESOL, certainly it is the intention that provision of education of English as a second or acquired language will be made available, obviously, to everybody who arrives. We are then working closely with our colleagues in GEMS, which is the regional service, to support them, the children, once they are in school. So there's both aspects of that are being taken forward. We've worked very closely with a whole range of partners. Health play a very considerable role in this programme. As you'll be aware from the briefings I provided previously, all of these Syrians come from the group who has been most acutely affected by the troubles within Syria. So these are the ones who have been identified at the highest level of need by the UNHCR. So Aneurin Bevan work with us before arrival. They do an assessment of all of the families who are proposed to come to Monmouthshire to make sure that we have suitable health services in place for them. And I'm pleased to say that all of the families that have been proposed to come to us have been accepted by the medical director of Aneurin Bevan, so that's very positive. This will be a process of continual learning. We're at the moment beginning to mobilise the community resources, working closely with the churches and other institutions to make sure that when people arrive in communities, there's necessary support in place for them beyond the support which will be provided by us through our orientation support package. But I think that will be the key to the success in terms of ensuring that they feel able to stay in the places where they've been settled. And in answer to Councillor Jones's final point, at the moment we haven't determined our participation in the unaccompanied children scheme, but that is something which we'll certainly come on to discuss.
Councillor Crook, you've already spoken. So if there's anything else you want to say, can you ask the officers or the members after, please?
I just wanted to update the council that I just received news that the MP that we honoured at the start of this has recently passed away.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I just been told that myself. I think everyone heard what Councillor Crook said. The MP who was shot and stabbed today has just passed away. Could we please be upstanding as a mark of respect? Thank you. Item 9, the report of the head of planning. Mr. Mark Hand, is it? Sorry,
yeah.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Chairman. That is extremely sad news, Mr. Chairman. I present this report on behalf of Phil Murphy, who's on holidays at the moment, and I'm pleased Mark's with us so he can answer any questions. And what's before us is a revision of the planning scheme of delegation, and we've been asked to adopt this revised delegation. The Planning Wales Act, as you'll see, 2015 sets out a series of legislative changes to reform the planning system in Wales. The Act has made a series of improvements to modernise the planning enforcement system. The provisions will reduce the opportunity to delay effective enforcement action by preventing developers from repeatedly submitting either applications or appeals where they have already failed to obtain planning permission in circumstances set out in secondary legislation by the Welsh ministers. The improvements that the Act include are bullet pointed at 3.2, Chair, and I won't read through those. You can see there's a raft of various issues. And in 3.4 you'll see the delegation to officers should be amended now to read the Chief Officer, Innovation and Enterprise, the Head of Planning, Housing and Place Shaping, Development Service Manager, Planning Applications and Enforcement Manager, and Heritage Manager, clearly all relative to the points alluded to in 3.3. There are other points there, Mr. Chairman, of alteration which don't need to be read out, but you'll see them in rest of 3.4 and 3.5. There are no resource implications to this, but I'm sure Mr. Hand would elaborate further if needed. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Leader. Anyone wish to ask a question? Councillor Val-Smith.
Please, Chairman. Somewhere within the report, the technology has failed me, and Councillor on my right and various councillors. There is a reference, I've got it on my piece of paper here, E, somewhere in there, item E, down the bottom towards the end, that we are delegating to officers to respond on behalf of council to heavy goods vehicle applications. Have you done?
I've done.
Oh, success, thank you. I have the technology back again. Thank you, Chairman. But basically we're saying that officers will respond on behalf of the councils to the heavy goods vehicle operators licence applications. Now, this is an issue that over the years I've raised a couple of times because there's been a complete and total unawareness of such applications within the ward or another part of Monmouthshire. And I think it's very important that local people do know about these things, and I think this is something that should go to local councils, the community or the town councils, when such proposals are, well, applications are made. As I say, on my piece of paper, I've got E, so it's somewhere at the bottom of that report, Mr. Hand. Just before Appendix 2, I'm told by the gentleman on my right. So I would like members to seriously consider that. They're small applications, they can be, but they can have a big impact on local communities. I'm aware, and that has happened within my tenure as a councillor. Also, the reference to the repeated applications. So many years ago, I presented a motion to the Local Government Association, their annual meeting, when it was held in Llandudno. it must be the best part of 30 years ago, and it was agreed that repeated applications were not acceptable. There was one that had been going on and on for years within the area that I represent. So it has actually arrived now, it seems, but it's taken a long time coming. But seriously, I do think about the lorry applications, please, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Does someone want to respond to that, please? Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I'll check on some of the detail behind that if you don't mind. This isn't actually a proposed change. This is already in the scheme of delegation. So I must admit I didn't pay too much attention to what that line said. I'll find out how those consultations occur already and where they go from there, if that's okay.
I can come back on that, Chairman. Certainly there is no consultation with local members if they're treated in the same way as I or the local community or town councils.
Thank you. Any other comments on that, please? Councillor Fox. Sorry, Councillor Howard. Sorry. First.
Thank you, Chair. No questions per se, but I wanted to acknowledge the change in the enforcement powers. It's probably one of the best things in the planning bill. And I recall a situation, I'm not sure it was last year or the year before, where a developer in my ward decided to put up without any notice whatsoever what they called a marketing suite, which essentially was a porter cabin and associated equipment with a generator. And that company, I think, was probably knew quite well how to play the system. And by the time the enforcement notice was dealt with, an application was submitted and then withdrawn, the show house was up. So I hope we'll make use of these new powers assiduously, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fox, did you want to?
Yeah, no, Chairman, it was only that it was remiss of me. I didn't actually read the recommendations. So when you're ready, Chairman, I will do so.
Are there any other comments, please? If not, be ready for you, Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Chairman. And so the recommendations are, members, in 2.1 that the Council endorses the revised planning scheme of delegation attached to the report, and that the Head of Planning be authorised to update the above documents in the future in relation to factual corrections to job titles.
All in favour of those two recommendations, please, she saw by raising hands. Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you. Next item. Sorry, Mr. White, it's you again. I thought I didn't realise you were two. It's the Audit Committee Annual Report for 2015-2016.
Right, I think I've now managed to make the technology work. As a lay member and current chair of the Audit Committee, I welcome this opportunity to present to you on behalf of the Audit Committee our annual report, not just for 2015-16, but for 2014-15 as well. The report provides the Council with information on the terms of reference and the main responsibilities of the Committee, and it provides details of meetings held with attendance statistics and provides a detailed account of committee activities under broad headings. The specific activities are too many and varied to summarise effectively in this introduction, and I urge those interested to note the list of activities given in the report, which make it clear that the Committee has fulfilled its role as defined in its terms of reference. The Committee's workings have been valuable and productive and provide assurance to the Council regarding the effective governance of financial affairs and other matters by the authority. Nevertheless, I would emphasise the Committee's work with internal audit, receiving reports and examining their content, including asking appropriate officers and others to attend the Committee from time to time to provide the Committee with evidence that they have responded appropriately to recommendations made by internal audit. Another major player is the Welsh Audit Office, which has to date attended most, if not all, of the meetings of the Committee, and apart from carrying out the annual external audit of the Authority finances, works closely with the Authority on proposals for improvement and provides reports on many other matters. Separately, the Committee has received and scrutinised reports from officers on numerous topics, including partnership and collaboration with other bodies, complaints received, performance management, information governance and scrutiny. The Head of Finance attends meetings of the Committee, and the Committee considers broader financial issues such as treasury management. The production of this annualised report stems from a self-assessment exercise carried out in March 2015 to gauge the effectiveness of the Committee. The appendix to the report sets out the recommendations arising from the workshop and the Committee's considered responses. you'll see that recommendation 6 on page 53 was for the production of an annual report. I don't pretend to be the author of this report, which stems completely from the work of the committee and also the more than substantial report I've received from officers. I believe, however, that we have a framework for future annual reporting of the activities of the Audit Committee. The process of reporting and self-review helps the committee to look for ways to improve its effectiveness by examining its own working practices, by seeking appropriate information and training for its members, and by influencing the content of the committee's work programme. I therefore submit the report for your consideration, and I would be happy to answer any questions during this meeting or in subsequent correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr White. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Mr White, I wanted just to thank you for coming today to present the report, but also thank you for the several years now you've chaired the Audit Committee. I think that self-review has been a really positive thing and brought forward this audit report today, and I think there's lessons learned for all committees about self-review. I think that's really healthy. I thank you and your members and all the officers involved for that deep insight and deep dive into the key issues in the council, the key strands that support the foundations of the council. That's really reassuring for us to know that there's a robust process there which we can have confidence in, and I do have confidence in the audit function. So just a note of thanks, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just a question, really, it's a question for the Monitor Officer rather than Mr White. On 4.2, page 46, it uses the words, the committee consists of 11 councillors, includes 1 lay member co-opted. Well, my understanding is that the council appoints the audit committee and that the lay member was appointed after interview. So I would, is the word co-opted the correct word there, or should that be appointed?
Mr Tranter, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I don't really know the answer, Councillor Easton, frankly. Yeah, I'll come back to you if I may on that. I don't think it's sort of it's not earth-shatteringly important, I don't think, but I'll come back to you if I may. Is that okay? Thank you.
Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. May I ask the Chair on his agenda, on his report there, on agenda item number 16 there of his notes there, consider setting up subgroups of committee members to look at particular areas. Committee members noted that this was already possible, but the Chair has been informed that secretary support would not be available. Does he believe as Chair that actually if we did have some subgroups set up, it would enhance the audit process of this authority and take it forward even to a greater level?
I think it was just that members of the committee at the workshop thought that we could break up into smaller groups to look at specific issues if we wanted to, and we just had that warning that we wouldn't automatically get a secretary, so we'd have to organise it ourselves. So I think it's a possibility now for the audit committee to do if it wants to do, but since the workshop we haven't had a proposal to do it.
May I just ask then, Chair, would it be within the remit of this council today to ask our cabinet member and the lead who is in charge of democracy within the authority to actually review this and explore whether we could take this forward? Because if members have brought that and raised that as an issue of no clerical support, it does hinder taking things forward, because we are members, we're not clerks. And I think it would enhance any department or any committee or any select in this authority of running subgroups, that support should be there.
Mr White, I think the Chief Executive wants to answer this one.
I was just going to say, we haven't been presented with a dilemma yet. If we were, we'd consider it. You have a statutory head of democracy. That person is charged with assuring the council that it can adequately discharge all of its commitments around democracy, including clerking, secretarial arrangements as may need to be put in place. And you know, the end point is, if we are unable to do it and you want to achieve it, then it's an additional investment that you will have to sanction, and you will have to find the money for it as a council.
But as at this point in time, we don't have the dilemma.
Thank you for that, Chief Executive. Councillor Prosser.
Yes, Chair. Thinking about that particular topic, I think it's a sort of a side discussion of to seek further information is what is intended there. And any information obtained would go back to the main committee, which is minuted, and the secretary there. So it would get into the minutes by that route. Yes, if it was a very, very, very important, exceptional subgroup for whatever reason and was critical, I'm sure that the chair would talk to the head of democracy accordingly. But I see no reason to change the system now.
Thank you, Councillor Prosser. I think I'm inclined to agree with you. Any other comments on that, please? Right, Mr. White, if you would like to suggest moving the recommendations.
Well, I'm happy to move that the council accepts our annual report, and I'd also like to express my gratitude for constructive and helpful comments that have been made. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you. Good. We now want to members' questions, and they are as they are on the agenda, from Councillor Petroni to Councillor Hackey-Ping. If you'd like to respond, the question is there as for my part. The questions are as they are. Are you entitled to supplementary questions? We can take it up then. Councillor Hackey-Ping.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I would hope that you would just indulge me to hand out some paperwork, because I know that with answering the questions, when actually reciting a lot of figures can at the least be slightly boring. So I'm going to pass out, if that's okay with you, Chairman, some leaflets so that people can see the figures. So the first question, how many full-time equivalent teachers?
Could we have a copy up here as well?
Of
Please?
course
We only
you
kept
can.
in the dark.
There we go, there's some there. There's one for the clerk as well.
When you're ready, Councillor Hackey-Ping, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I hope that helps members. The first question, the number of qualified teachers, 2012, 629, 2013, 636, 2014, 633, 2015, 608.
Councillor Petroni. No questions? No supplementaries? Fine, thank you. The next question, 11.2, please. Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you very much. The support teachers, 2012, 522. 2013, 534. 2014, 543. 2015, 512.
Any supplementary question, Councillor Petrulli?
Just a quick query. How often do we monitor these figures? And if so, how often do we monitor them? And if they hit a certain level, either too high or too low, do we do anything? Is there any action, or is it ad hoc?
Sorry, Councillor Petruni, I don't quite understand that. When do we monitor? Do you mean the number of teachers? What?
One support question, aren't we?
Support question, yes, and I've given you the figures. So what are you asking about the monitoring of those figures?
Do you or do we as the council monitor those figures, or do you have to get them specially, or are they regularly monitored? I don't know how else I can say it.
Yes, I see what you're saying now. These figures are regularly monitored, but they're not monitored in the way that you have specifically asked for them. So quite a lot of work has gone into this to be able to answer your specific questions. But yes, the number of teachers, etc., it is monitored.
11.3, Councillor Hackett-Payne, please.
11.3 is to do with the sickness absence. In 2012, 64%, and this is to do with the teachers. It could be half a day, it could be more than half a day. So if a teacher is off sick, it is counted in the sickness absence. In 2013, there was 57% of teachers were off sometime in that year. 2014, 65%, and 2015, 59%. This is most certainly monitored, and you can see that since 2012, there was a change in the sickness because of that being specifically monitored as something that is done on a regular basis and looked into why people are sick and what support they need to ensure that they can come back to work if possible.
Thank you. Any supplementary question, please? No. 11.4 then, please, Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you. The number of days, 2012, 5,344, 2013, 4,781, 2014, 4,837, 2015, 4,644. As you can see, there's been a downward incline. And Chairman, may I also say that these figures run September to September to fit in with the school academic terms rather than January to January, as most figures are reported.
Thank you for that. Is there a supplementary question, please? No? 11.5, please, Councillor Hackett-Payne.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The average class size for Key Stage 1, the foundation phase, 2012 is 24, 25, 2013 is 25, 2014 is 25, 2015 is 25. And I've put underneath that, it wasn't asked for, but just to, is the actual cohort, the number of children that are in the foundation phases in those particular years.
In relation to the additional information, are there any questions on that, please, as Councillor Hackett-Payne just mentioned?
Yes, quick, is that 11.5? Maybe because we don't monitor it. There's no Key Stage 4 or 5?
I haven't answered that bit yet.
Oh.
I've just done the foundation phase. There's Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3, which if members are happy with the information on there, I won't read out. Key Stage 4, I would have gone on to say that I haven't responded to that, mainly because the officers, in all honesty, it took them a very long time because it's not normally reported like this to be able to get those figures. And if you can imagine, when you get to Key Stage 4, when you're looking at your GCSEs and when you go on to A-levels, the number in specific is quite difficult because people are doing different subjects, they're moving to different parts of so it was quite difficult to be able to do that. So that information is not there. If you imagine your class sizes, if you had, say, Spanish, that was probably going to be a lot smaller than your English and maths, and that will be different for GCSE. So that's why that size isn't there, or it couldn't be found without an awful lot of information. So that's why it isn't there.
Thank you for that response, Councillor Hackett-Payne. Did you want to say something else, Councillor Petruni?
Thank you. I think when we look at this, in effect, it is basically flat-lined across those years, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. When I actually look in the EAS business plan, and I look at the standards going from those years, when we look at foundation phase with our colleagues in the consortium, in those particular years, 2012, 13, 14 and 15, we were first across, Monmouthshire were first across those years with a 5% increase. Key Stage 2, we were first 2012, first 2013, second 2014 and 15 we were first as well with a 6% increase. Key Stage 3 was similar with a 13.1 increase, and when we're looking at the Key Stage 4, again we were first across the authority. So all I can say is the figures show a basic flat line of children and the children in the classes, but the standards have risen over those years.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hackett-Payne. In relation to those statistics, could we be circulated those, please, across the membership of the council?
These ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
The figures you've just announced. Councillor Petroni.
Sorry, just for clarification. So we're not getting Key Stage 4 and 5. Is it just too difficult to give us those figures? Is that what's been said?
I can find that information for you, but in all honesty, the officers have spent the best part of a week getting these for you. And at the end of the day, you've got to balance out how much has this question cost the council. It isn't any trying not to give you the information. It is just quite difficult to get.
Do I take it that at some point in time those questions will be responded to?
Certainly can. There won't be a problem in finding that information. It's just they couldn't get that in time.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the public element of this agenda. Item 12 is to exclude the press and public from the meeting during the consideration of the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information.
Move we do that, Chairman.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. White, I'm afraid you have to leave at this point in time as well.
We need to switch off the